Hello, my name is Whittlin Desir. I am the Public Participation Planner here at DVRPC. I work in the Office of Communications and Engagement. I'm also the staff lead for the Public Participation Task Force. So tonight we're having our first Public Participation Task Force meeting of the year. It's going to be on improving pedestrian and cyclist experience through data and design. But before I introduce our presenters, I want to just go through some quick guide to having a great meeting. So as you can tell, the meeting's virtual, which means the way you engage with us is going to be a little bit different tonight than you would in an in-person meeting. So step one, we have a Q&A box. Use this box. It's at the bottom of your screen to ask questions during the presentation. We will be looking at the Q&A box throughout the presentation, so you may get responses if it's a simple question by somebody on the panelist side or a DVRPC staff member, or we may ask a panelist to clarify your question live. So please feel free to use that. We will not be taking questions until the end of all the presentations. That's when we'll be taking questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them throughout. Use the chat to share ideas. So a lot of y'all who are joining us are very engaged residents, and you have a lot of interesting viewpoints and you have a lot of great connections around your community. So if you want to drop links, or if you want to just say, I agree, or I love that, or how about this, like that's a great place to put it. So the chat will be monitored as well, and we will be using it to share links that the presenters present on, but we will not be responding to questions in the chat. So if you have something that you do want to be answered, again, use the Q&A box. Please message us if you have any questions. You're all muted and you can only be unmuted by DVRPC. That's so that we can have a really great presentation and others' quality and experience do not get damaged because of the meeting. Please raise your hand. So at the end, again, we're going to have a panelist discussion. So if you'd like to ask the panelist questions, please raise your hand and I will call on you and you can ask them the question live. And lastly, be mindful and courteous with other attendees. So you're able to talk to other attendees. In the Q&A, you're able to upvote questions that you like, so questions that you really want to get answered. We're all coming from different places, literally. So some of us are coming from the suburbs, some of us are coming from rural areas, some of us are coming from like major cities, different counties, different states. We're all speaking from our own experience, so please be respectful when engaging with other, the panelists and other attendees. So tonight we have 4 great speakers. First up is Chris Mulroy. He is a transportation planner here at DVRPC in the Office of Transit, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Planning. Tonight, he's going to be presenting 3 DVRPC web tools that he hopes you will take back to your city, town, or neighborhood to make the case for infrastructure improvement and design changes to make roads safer for all users, especially pedestrians and bicyclists. After Chris, Clara Robin Adler, who is a transit project coordinator in the City of Philadelphia's Office of Complete Streets, is going to be presenting. She got her start in planning as a community volunteer using publicly available data resources and attending meetings similar to this. Her presentation tonight will be about how to make streets safer and work for everyone by informing design with data-driven plans. She hopes you'll be able to use some of the tools she shares as well. After Claire, we have Nidhi. Nidhi is the bicycle pedestrian coordinator at PennDOT District 6. She supervises bicycle, pedestrian, multimodal specialty projects, scoping, coordination, and design reviews, including streetscapes, multi-use trails, and ADA pedestrian facilities associated with the department and grant-funded program, Municipal HOP, and other initiatives. She's also leads the Bicycle Friendly Resurfacing Initiative and contract management for ADA curb ramp projects. Nidhi will be presenting, but Paul Lutz is also joining us in the back. So if you have any questions, he can answer those too in the Q&A box. Paul is the Senior Manager of Transportation Services at PennDOT District 6. He has worn many hats and continues to wear many hats in PennDOT's traffic operations, including ADA coordinator, bike pedestrian coordinator, and roundabout coordinator. Prior to becoming Senior Manager of Transportation Services, Paul served many years as the PennDOT Signals Unit Supervisor. So there is a wealth of knowledge in Paul. So just because Nidhi is presenting does not mean you cannot ask questions, and Paul may be able to answer once he joins. Lastly, but not, what's the term, JJ? Lastly, but not lastly. My English isn't great. JJ knows that. JJ is going to be presenting from the user experience side. He is an artist, massage therapist, and block captain based in West Philadelphia. His How Philly Moves mural at Philadelphia International Airport is the largest piece of public art in the city and was recognized as one of the nation's best public art projects by Americans for the Arts. His other large project, Walk Around Philadelphia, which is what he's going to be presenting on tonight, it literally embraces the entire city through a more than 100-mile pedestrian pilgrimage. JJ is going to be bringing us all back down to the user experience with his presentation. Before we begin with the presentation, I'm going to just do a quick overview of DVRPC and the PPTF. For a lot of you, this may be your first meeting at DVRPC or your first meeting with the PPTF, and I want to make sure that we all understand who is hosting this and how this is important to the work we do here. So DVRPC is the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for the Philadelphia region. If you look at the image to the bottom right, you'll see we supervise and advise on 9 different counties across New Jersey and Pennsylvania, five in Pennsylvania, 4 in New Jersey. DVRPC does its work by convening city, county, and state representatives together to address key issues, including transportation, land use, environmental protection, economic development, and equity. DVRPC serves the greater Philadelphia region by supporting planning analysis, data collection, mapping services, and federal funding opportunities that it does with a lot of the counties and a lot of the TMAs around the county. If you're interested in learning more about DVRPC, please don't hesitate to visit dvrpc.org/about. This is quite an old organization, older than many of the people on this webinar today. So there's a wealth of knowledge within the organization and a wealth of knowledge on our website. So please don't hesitate to visit it to learn more. The Public Participation Task Force is one of the many committees that DVRPC hosts. This is the only committee that DVRPC hosts that is dedicated to bringing the public, residents, people outside of the planning community and engineers into the planning world. So we have many different types of committees based on all the key issues that DVRPC supports our member government partners with. But the Public Participation Task Force is the only one where our goal is to create a recurring spaces for residents to learn more about the work we do and to help us better understand how the work we do at DVRPC works with residents. So how are you actually engaging with the work? So if you want to learn more about the task force, or if you want to become a member of the task force, please visit dvrpc.org/committee/PPTF. The links for this is also in the chat box. So without further ado, we are going to begin with our first presenter, Chris. Chris, you can take over.
All right, thank you, Wendell. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everyone see my screen? All right, perfect. So as Wendell mentioned, my name is Chris Mulroy, and I'm a transportation planner at DVRPC in the Office of Transit, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Planning. I first want to thank all members for their work on this important task force and welcome any member from the public. I really appreciate you joining tonight, and I hope you're in for some good tools to bring back to your community. So today I will review 3 data tools that we maintain. The tools kind of help us understand how pedestrians and cyclists move through the built environment, and one tool in particular uncovers where there are current safety concerns. As many of you know, a well-connected pedestrian and bicycle network really is the foundation of a healthy, accessible, and prosperous neighborhood, town, city, and region. So launched in 2021, the Greater Philadelphia Pedestrian Portal is a data set for understanding, evaluating, and prioritizing pedestrian accessibility in our 9-county region. The Pedestrian Portal makes data readily available for local planners, officials, and community members such as yourselves to help provide future pedestrian improvements. The portal was created using aerial imagery and cross-referencing it with existing data sets. Today, we'll review two of the portal's primary functions. So the Explore function allows you to see Greater Philadelphia sidewalk inventory. As you can see on the map, pedestrian facilities such as sidewalks, crosswalks, and curb ramps are all included. Sidewalks are this one particular shade of blue, crosswalks are this other, and then ramps are denoted by circular with a dot inside. The analysis tool allows us to select from 5 different options. Today we'll review the street segment gaps, the walk time to transit, and the walk time to school tools. And then the other two tools that unfortunately we don't have time to review tonight include the rail station walkshed and islands of connectivity. So the street segment tool identifies sidewalk coverage for each street segment in our 9-county region. This map shows Keynes Avenue, also known as Route 38 in Cherry Hill, which is in Camden County in New Jersey. And we're kind of going to spotlight this stretch of roadway tonight. As we can see, the dark red means that there's sidewalks missing on both sides of the street. The orange indicates that there's a sidewalk on one side of the street, and then the green shows that there's sidewalks on both sides of that street. The walk time to transit tool calculates walking time to the nearest transit stop, whether that's a bus station or rail station. And then similarly, the walk time to school tool calculates the walking time to the nearest school alongside our sidewalk network. As you can see on Cuthbert Boulevard here, because there's no sidewalks, unfortunately, that is indicated as red as the nearest school is inaccessible by sidewalk. But we can see here in this green section that the nearest walk to a school is probably between 5 to 10 minutes. So alongside our pedestrian portal, another critically publicly available tool is the Regional Crash Data Viewer. This allows us to view all reportable crashes in our 9-county region, and the information helps inform where to prioritize efforts to increase safety and comfort for pedestrians and bicyclists. If we look again at Keynes Avenue, this time in the Crash Data Viewer, we can see all the reportable crashes between 2017 and 2021. And this data comes from the New Jersey Department of Transportation. The Data Viewer also lets us uncover, of these crashes, how many resulted in a death or severe injury, also known as KSI. As we can see, unfortunately, in this window, a pedestrian was tragically killed at this location in December 2019. We hope tools like this encourage as planners, elected leaders, and the community to make the case for safety improvements and investments. So as a region, we can eliminate all roadway fatalities. And finally, the last tool I'll go over tonight is our most recent. This was launched on March 1st. The Bicycle Cyclical Count Program Story Map provides an overview of our cyclical count program that analyzes bicycle volumes. It's been collecting bicycle volumes from 2014, and the data in this story map goes up to 2022. We hope this story map provides a better understanding of changes in bicycle volumes over time across different geographies and on different types of bicycle facilities. The data is intended to inform municipal and county decision makers and help guide future bicycle infrastructure investments. So the Bicycle Cyclical Count Program collects bicycle volumes at 134 locations by deploying pneumatic tubes, which is what you can see in the photo here. And these tubes are deployed over a 7-day period every 3 years at the 134 locations. So the way we built out the story map is it's broken up by county, and we set 3 distinct time periods, the first being 2014 to 2016, which we nicknamed the first 3 years. The next being 2017 to 2019, the years before COVID-19, and then finally 2020 to 2022, and these were the years of COVID. We then used concentric rings to display changes over the 3 time periods. So the story map looks at how bicycle volumes are related to the following topics, including geography. We compared the 4 New Jersey counties to the 4 Pennsylvania suburban counties versus the city of Philadelphia. We looked at people density levels, which is the number of people living and working by census block. And for each count location, a people density rating from 1 to 5 was assigned, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. So think Center City, Philadelphia. Employment centers were also evaluated, and these are areas of non-residential development, and these centers really form the backbone of our region's economy and are prime destinations for journey to work trips. We also looked at the shift to hybrid and remote work. And finally, we looked at safety concerns. So as we know, unfortunately, 10 Philadelphians tragically died last year while riding a bicycle. So it was important that we evaluated safety. And then we also looked at the facility types. So each count location was designated one of 8 facility types, which I'll go over more in the next slide. So as we can see here, of the locations we measured pre-COVID-19, so looking at from 2014 to 2016, looking at the changes to 2017 to 2019, we did see an increase in ridership on protected and buffered bike lanes. Unfortunately, after the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw a decrease across the board. This program is going to become really important in the next year or two to continue evaluating how COVID-19 has impacted bicycle volumes in the city and whether it's a temporary blip or something of a long-term trend. And finally, I just want to thank the registrant who reached out about available data in New Jersey. I've included hyperlinks where pedestrian and bicycle data can be accessed, as well as links of other pertinent DVRPC data. I've also included the 3 tools that I've gone over tonight. And I just want to say, if you do have any questions, you want to explore the tools, or you have any suggestions on how the tools can be improved, please reach out to us, and we'd love to have that conversation. So with that, I just want to thank you all so much for having me tonight, and I would love to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
We have a couple minutes. If anybody wants to raise their hand and ask Chris any questions regarding his presentation, feel free to do so. Chi, you can unmute yourself now and ask your question.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. My question about your last slide about cycling volumes decreasing. So do you have a sense of where that might be going? Is it going to just no travel, or is it going to car miles traveled or transit, or do you have a sense?
So I think additional research will be needed to have a very kind of analytical approach. Anecdotally speaking, I think it's kind of a combination of people working from home during the first couple years of the pandemic. And I also think it's kind of, with us having a limited amount of counters, we only have 134 locations around our 9-county region. If a protected bike lane were to be installed maybe next to a roadway that's currently just a buffered bike lane, that might be taking volumes away from that one. So I think as we collect more data and our sample size grows, I think we'll have a better understanding about exactly where bicycle volumes might be going.
Thank you. And I'm seeing that we have a question in the Q&A. Will the presentation be available on the web after the meeting? Yes, we will have the presentation available on the web after the meeting, including all the responses. So thank you for asking that question. We can take one more question for Chris. If anybody has any questions regarding anything that Chris presented, please raise your hand. Alrighty, Chris, they're getting warmed up at 6:20, so I'm sure they have questions afterward. Next, we're going to have Claire from the City of Philadelphia present.
Hi, everyone. Is my screen sharing? All right, looks like it is. Great, thank you. I'm Claire Robin Adler. I work for the City of Philadelphia's Office of Complete Streets, and I'm going to be talking about how in our office we use data tools to design effective roads that work for everyone and how we evaluate them. So I am first going to give a little bit more background on our office and what we do. Then I'm going to talk about our project process, both how we select and design our complete streets projects, and then how we use data to evaluate those projects. So the Office of Complete Streets is a part of the City of Philadelphia's Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability, or OTIS. We work under the city's managing director's office. And as you can see from our mission statement here, we work to make sure that everybody, no matter their age and ability, can travel safely, regardless of whether they're going by bus or bike or by foot or in a car. It says here all Philadelphians, but certainly, if you're from anywhere else, you're traveling Philadelphia, we care about your safety too. The goals that drive our work are Vision Zero, which Chris touched on. This is the idea that we want to make sure that nobody is dying because of a traffic crash, and that we can design roads that do that. We also prioritize transit, and I know our webinar today, we're talking a lot about bicyclists and pedestrians, but I think that transit is an important connection to those modes as well, and because it's an equitable and affordable way to move people around a city, especially as we get more people coming in, and that we also design great streets that are great streets are streets that are well maintained, and that serve people no matter how they travel. And to that end, so we're designing complete streets. You might ask, what is a complete street? A complete street, and that's a street that is safe for all users and that people aren't dying from traffic crashes. It's a street that prioritizes pedestrian movement because every single trip is going to have some sort of pedestrian portion. If you're on your bike, you got to walk to your bike. If you're in your car, you got to walk to your final destination, and so on. There's streets that are sensitive to their environment, that they make sense, not for what buildings are on that corridor, what activities they connect to, who the community is that lives there. Not every street is going to look the same. And a complete street should provide multiple modal options. And that's not to say that every single street is going to be the best street to bike on or the best street to drive on, but that altogether as a network, these complete streets come together so that you can get to any destination on any of these modes that makes sense for you. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about our project process. We kind of have a two-step process for identifying where we make our projects. The first is to think about what are our opportunities, and the second is to think about what are our goals. And so when we're thinking about our opportunities to redesign streets, one of the first things we think about is what streets need to be repaved because of maintenance. And so we have some streets in the city of Philadelphia that are owned by PennDOT. We'll hear from Nidhi in a little bit from PennDOT, and we have some that are owned by the city. And each of those government agencies has their paving lists. And so we think about, okay, when is this going to be repaved? That's an opportunity for us to design and get a safer road that works for everybody. And you can actually check out what these paving lists, what roads are planned to be repaved at streetsmartphl.phila.gov, and see. It's not to say that every street that's going to be repaved we're going to redesign, but it's a good opportunity to think about what type of work, if we'll even have the opportunity to do work. And this website's really cool because you can also check out the paving condition, you can see construction status. It's a good thing to note that these paving plans, they are just plans. Things can change, but it's the best tool that even internally we have frequently to know what's coming up next. Another thing I wanted to mention here, a tool that you can access is our traffic calming program. So this is a program that we just recently updated. to make it a little bit easier and more equitable and much more transparent to all residents in Philadelphia. So you can submit your street for requesting traffic calming measures. You can use 311 to submit it now. And this website has all the information that you need for that. And you can track the status, and it's much easier now to do that. So then once we kind of know what our opportunities are for streets that are going to be repaved, then we want to think about, okay, is this a street where we have limited resources? Is this a street that we really want to focus on? Is it going to achieve our goals to redesign this street? And so some of the plans and tools that we use for that are our high injury network from our Vision Zero plan, the city's bike and pedestrian plan, and a transit plan. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those. But all of these plans are informed by a lot of the data that you can access publicly at opendataphilly.org. So the Vision Zero plan contains our high injury network. And this is using the crash information that Chris shared. We developed a network of streets. It's just 12% of all streets where 80% of the most serious crashes occur. So because we do have limited opportunities and resources to redesign our streets, if we can just focus on 12% of streets, we should be able to reduce by 80% all of our serious crashes. And so that's really helpful information for us. So we're always checking whether a street is a part of that network. Then we also look a lot at our bicycle and pedestrian plan. And in that plan, there's an evaluation of existing bicycle facilities, what generates demands for biking, what's the roadway type, and therefore what might be an appropriate facility, where are there bicycle crashes, where do people need to go, and the equity of where bike lanes and facilities are distributed throughout the city. And from this plan, we've developed our high quality bike network, which basically says this is where we want to have separated, protected, or trail bike lanes. We also recommend other bicycle facilities that maybe make more sense for a different type of roadway, or a roadway where maybe the space isn't available to create a separated bike lane. And then our transit plan, we evaluated all of the bus corridors in Philadelphia. We were looking at equity, the share of low-income riders, the ridership, how many people are riding the bus, how frequently the bus comes, and how well that bus is working. Is it slowed down? Is it reliable? And from that, we came up with transit priority corridors. So corridors where we want to use on-road treatments to make the bus work better for everybody. So once we've kind of looked at all of our plans and think about what kind of modes do we want to prioritize, and is that a road where we want to use our design resources, then we think about, does our design toolbox apply? And if so, what kind of tools apply? This is not all of the tools that we can use when we're redesigning a street, but it is, they're some of the ones that we use the most frequently. And so one of the things we'll do when we've said, yes, this roadway is on our Vision Zero network, maybe it's also on our high quality bike network, we want to redesign it. We then dig into the data more, like we look at the crash data and we see what types of crashes are there. Are there a lot of left turn crashes? Are there crashes that are maybe caused because you couldn't see, because we actually go out there and we see both how the crash data matches up with what we see, and therefore what tools are appropriate for that. So that's kind of how we do projects. And now I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of our recent data analysis to see how well our projects are working. So in our most recent Vision Zero annual report, we asked the question, do these safety improvements can we see the effect of how they reduce injuries and crashes, and how well are they doing that, and how do we quantify that? This is a really cool story map that this is the link to, that I'm just going to give a few highlights from, but if you're a data person, I definitely recommend exploring this a bit. It's got a lot of really cool stuff. So what we did is we did something That's called a difference in difference regression analysis. But basically what that is, we're just comparing the streets where we did safety projects and comparing them to streets where we didn't, and to see how did crash trends compare. And what we found across projects was we saw 20% fewer injury crashes overall, and 34% fewer of those KSI crashes, which are the crashes where people are killed or are seriously injured. So on the map here, you can see these were the projects that we analyzed, that we've done in our office, and you can dig into those a little more online. Some other high level data points. So that specifically with road diets, we saw 18% fewer injury crashes. So that's where we're removing one lane or more of traffic, and hopefully slowing cars down, since we know that speed is one of the biggest predictors of the severity of a crash. For our separated bike lane projects, we saw 17% fewer injury crashes. And then on the transit side, for our dedicated bus lanes, we saw 15% faster buses on JFK Boulevard with a new bus lane, 7% faster buses on Market Street with a new bus lane, and on Chestnut Street, where we already had a bus lane, but we put in red paint, we saw an increase of 5% in the bus speeds. And then in our neighborhood slow zones, which are projects where we put in traffic calming measures and pedestrian improvements. This is an example from our Fair Hill neighborhood. We also saw improvements. In the first year since installing it, we had two slow zones that are completed, and we've had a year since then, and we've seen no serious injury crashes in those slow zones. So pretty proud of the work, but it's really helpful for us to look at this data and to see, break it out by the type, so we know exactly how the different designs are affecting the outcomes. And so I've compiled all of our links here at the end. And I don't know where we are in time, but if we have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Hi, Claire. Thank you. We actually do have a question from the Q&A box. Chloe Moore asked, what is a bikeway search corridor? It was on one of Claire's slides.
Yeah, let me go back to that. So was it here, or I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember where that was.
Chloe, you can unmute yourself and ask and let Claire know. Give us a second. All right, Chloe, you want to talk to Claire?
Yeah, it was back one or two more from this.
Oh,
there we go. On this one,
yes.
bikeway search corridor. I was just curious what that meant. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what? I am actually not entirely sure, but I will grab the link to the plan that's from, and I will just look it up, and I'll put the answer in the chat and get back to you.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Good question. Thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions for Claire? If you do, please raise your hand. Ruth, you can ask your question.
Hi, are we able to apply for the traffic calming for your block online, and in addition to calling 311, because our block has had 3 really serious drive-throughs that totaled 5 cars 2 times and 9 cars another time. And we weren't selected for a slow zone. There was no deaths, although there was loss of property. And I'm wondering, I'm told that as a block captain, or even as an individual, I can apply for just for my block, not the whole zone. Can that be done online?
Yes, so to clarify, first of all, yeah, I'm dreadfully sorry about your block. That is definitely, I'm glad that you're taking initiative and trying to get some improvements. You definitely can apply online. To clarify, the 311 submission, 311 works both by phone and online. And so the submission over a phone and online will do the same thing, but I definitely do recommend doing it online anyway, even if you've already called, because online you'll be able to have more tracking information. You'll get a number and you can see online the status of your request, which I think can be easier, and you can share it with other folks on your block. So I definitely recommend doing that, but it is the same as calling 311. So don't feel like you have to.
Is that by using the link that you have, traffic calming?
Yes, that's by using the link that I have. I don't know. Do we have those in the chat yet?
Thank you. I see it.
Yeah.
I see it
Great.
on your screen right
Yes.
there, but it's not a live link.
Yeah, we'll make sure to get them in the chat.
Thank you, dear.
We
Yes,
will.
thank you.
And JJ actually added the form to the chat, Ruth. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, JJ.
We have one more question actually. It was asked earlier by Diana Hellboy. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. JJ responded to it, but I wanted to know if Claire, if you had anything to add to it. How do I report a location where cars park on a bike lane every day on a busy 4-lane road, Henry Ave? I'm not on Facebook or Twitter, so I don't know if you had anything to add to JJ response.
Yeah, let me see JJ's response.
It's in the Q&A.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think I agree with JJ about the 311. You can use the app, the online form, or calling. I'm sure you can also, if you email otis@phila.gov, which is on my screen right now, and let us know about a persistent problem. If 311 isn't responsive, we can always help to follow up and see if we can help with enforcement.
Awesome, thank you. Ruth, you have your hand up again. You had a follow-up question? You raised your hand. I don't know if it was a mistake or if you had a follow-up question. Okay.
No, that was a mistake. I was trying to unraise my hand.
Okay. And actually, Claire, we have one more question for you. So it's from Jarrett Johnson. It says Broad Street has been known for being a busy street, especially during peak hours, which causes buses along the route to be late. Are there any plans or discussions to implement bus lanes along Broad Street?
We don't have anything like that right now, but we're definitely aware of the slow buses on Broad Street.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Claire. Claire's going to also be looking at the Q&A box and responding to questions if you have any more questions for her. Next up, we have Nidhi from PennDOT.
Hi there. Yeah. Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me now. Thank you for taking the time to come out and listen to us when it's such a perfectly beautiful day outside. So I'm Nidhi Mehra. I work for PennDOT District 6, and I'm the Bicycle Pedestrian Coordinator. Today, I'm going to talk about the Bicycle Friendly Resurfacing Program and other ADA upgrades that are connected to the regular bicycle, not bicycle, but regular roadway resurfacing that PennDOT does. If you remember one thing from this presentation, this is a PennDOT program unique to District 6, and it has friendly in its title. So it's a very friendly program, friendly to the bicyclist need, and a friendly nudge to the local municipalities if they want bicycle facilities on their section of State Road. So this program is a direct outcome of PennDOT Connect's policy. It allows PennDOT District 6 to use regular maintenance budget and enhance the roadway. We try to leverage resources and evaluate if improvements can be made in a safe manner. We have a more complete streets approach using this. And the end design is a very context-specific design. So as part of this program, one thing that is key here is that it has been broken down into Philadelphia and suburban counties of District 6, which are Bucks, Chester, Delaware, and Montgomery. As Claire mentioned and showed, Philadelphia has a lot of resources, including the good work that OTIS is doing along with Streets Department and other departments. So what I'm going to focus on today is the suburban portion. And the key stakeholders for this program are, of course, PennDOT and Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, the county planning commissions, the local municipalities that eventually take ownership of the bicycle facilities. We also give a voice to Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia through this program, and they're able to bring forth the bicyclist perspective. So yeah, what am I really talking about here? I'm talking about basically paint and signs. The way it works is when PennDOT goes out there to resurface and conduct regular maintenance on its roadways, we try to see if we can install bicycle facilities. So on your right here is shared roadway. And this pavement marking here is indicating where exactly the bicyclist actually needs to be. I'll reiterate again, but in Pennsylvania, bicycle is considered a vehicle, and so it can be on any roadway other than limited access. So oftentimes people ask the question as to why do you have a shared roadway? So really we're trying to indicate to the bicyclists as to where on the roadway on that lane do they need to be, where they are safest. And it also reinforces to the motor vehicle drivers that there are bicyclists around, there are more bicyclists on this roadway. Then on your left in this image here, you can see a regular bicycle lane. The one without this buffer area, double lines, would be a typical conventional bike lane. In this case, we have a buffer area. And so we are able to visually separate the travel lane from a bicycle lane. It's a more safer way of bicycling and, you know, encouraging bicyclists to be on PennDOT roadway. One thing I must note here in this picture is that you're seeing the bike lane on the left because this is a one-way roadway. So these are the kind of treatments that we try to install during regular maintenance activity as part of the Bicycle Friendly Resurfacing Initiative. How does it start? So Claire, in one of her slides, showed how PennDOT has a 5-year resurfacing outlook. Every year or two, we update that. And basically, the moment we get that, the county planning commissions and the Delaware Valley Planning Commission and all the stakeholders just run with it. And we then identify each and every segment and we evaluate it if it is feasible to add any bicycle facility on it. And everybody looks at it from their unique perspective. DVRPC would look at it from a regional perspective. Most of the county planning commissions now have a bicycle master plan. They have their own county perspective. And then, of course, the local municipality. And then finally, the bicyclists themselves as to what kind of facility they like and what is the general local way of bicycling in that area. So here I talk about who owns what responsibilities. The municipality has to take ownership and they have to provide us a letter, a copy of which I've provided here, that they will be maintaining the bicycle lane related pavement markings and signs. And PennDOT's responsibilities are that, of course, we design it. We don't ask the municipalities to contribute in any way. And we install it as part of our regular maintenance work. Of course, because these are not physically separated, they're just, they can be as much as of a buffer zone. Snow removal and routine roadway maintenance is under PennDOT. This is just a slide showing how sharrows are installed. And then I'll move on to actually show you an example of what we did in Abington Township here, Fitzwatertown Road. So as you can see, this is mostly a residential area, and we've installed buffered bike lanes because there was space. And this is how the plans are made. This was a 2.5 mile stretch in which we were able to add all kinds of treatments, bike lanes, buffered bike lanes. Wherever there's space, we try to put in a buffered bike lane. If you're short on space, we'll put a bike, just a conventional bike lane. Closer to the intersection, if they're turning lanes, we do have shared lane for just getting through the intersection for bicyclists. So this is just a typical example that I'm sharing here. The limitations of the program. The project scope for the regular maintenance is quite limited. We cannot widen by an inch. And we cannot play around with the profile of the roadway. The crown of the roadway has to remain. The drainage of the roadway has to remain. Due to budget constraints, we are not able to use the wonderful green bike lanes that you saw in Philadelphia in Claire's presentation. And we are also unable to do physically separate bikeways. It just adds on to the municipal responsibilities, and we try to get away from that. So yeah, these are the limitations of the program. This is a very exciting time to be in this bike bed unit because the future of the program is increasing. As again, Claire had shown in her presentation, there's going to be a greater integration of road diet analysis and other traffic calming measures that we can incorporate along with bicycle facilities. So I think that is the complete streets approach that we are going to take starting 2024. So hopefully when I come back for this presentation again, we'll have much greater things to talk about. I will quickly move on to pedestrian facilities as to, again, these are related to regular maintenance activities that PennDOT does on its state routes. Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, is a federal civil rights statute, and that makes it compulsory for PennDOT to accommodate persons with disabilities and make it a routine and integral part, really, of its planning and design, and even highway occupancy permits there. So the mandate says that all new construction that have pedestrian needs, they need to incorporate adequate pedestrian facilities that are accessible and usable by all persons. That includes people on wheelchairs. And then they use the term all alteration type projects need to assess pedestrian needs and improve. Now, alteration word here, there are many definitions to it. There are major alteration, minor alteration. What I'm going to talk about is the kind of alteration that PennDOT resurfacing does. Every time PennDOT goes in and resurfaces the roadway, it is an alteration. So a point of view could have been that we don't really touch sidewalks, corners. Why are we supposed to update and upgrade ADA ramps? But the federal court has ruled that since the pedestrian path has been altered, which is the crosswalk, the corners are considered to be altered as well. And then we need to upgrade the ADA ramps. So what happens is that every time an ADA ramp, a resurfacing project goes through, we upgrade ADA ramps. When all this began around 2010, 2012, we used to have ADA ramp upgrade projects along with the maintenance resurfacing project. But that really hit the maintenance budget substantially, and that limited what maintenance funds could do. So we have changed things a bit around here in PennDOT. What we do now is that we trail the resurfacing projects. In our world, we call it trigger. The ADA ramps get triggered every time a segment gets resurfaced, a roadway gets resurfaced. We maintain a transition list of all the ADA ramps that need to be upgraded along that stretch. Then we go in and we procure funds, we put projects together, and then we go behind it, go behind the resurfacing project, and we go ahead and construct the ADA ramps. And all that the project does is construct ADA ramps. Continuing with the same Fitzwatertown Road in Abington theme, here you can see that these ADA ramps were not existing, but we went ahead and constructed all the ADA ramps. Generally, the detectable warning surfaces that you're seeing here are good indicators whether the ADA ramp has been upgraded or not. So that is how we try to address the pedestrian and bicycle facility needs through the regular maintenance project. And what are the program limitations? The biggest is right-of-way acquiring. We are unable to acquire any right-of-way because of the limited project scope of the maintenance project. At the end of the day, it is just a maintenance project. And because we can't do it together, ADA ramps are constructed a bit behind the regular resurfacing. And these here are just links that will remain in the presentation that you can click and see, and you can learn more about the DVRPC Bicycle Friendly Resurfacing Program, both in Philadelphia and the suburban counties. You can get more information on ADA. And here, this is basically based on the Q&A that we had received. I thought I should put in some publications here that help people understand how bicycling works in Pennsylvania. I can tell you this is a very quick one, tips for bicyclists. I even have the link cut out in my next slide here to answer one of the questions, question number 8 that was asked in Q&A. Before I do that, I would just like to tell you that we are grateful to you for your participation, and we encourage you to look out for pedestrian facility needs and bicycle friendly needs. And please approach your municipalities because they need to take ownership, and we will work our utmost best to get that facility installed. Contact information, and then I'll quickly move on to question number 8, which asked, are bicycles required to stop at red lights and stop signs? Please educate everybody you find that bicycles are considered vehicles. While I totally understand as a bicyclist that I hate stopping when I've got my momentum going, but all traffic control devices, be it a stop sign, be it a signal, we need to respect it and stop even if we are a bicyclist. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Nidhi. Does anyone have any questions for Nidhi regarding her presentation? We can take one question. Alrighty. Nidhi will be available in the chat to answer any questions you guys may have regarding her presentation or just pedestrian and cycling projects at PennDOT. We're going to move to JJ next. JJ, you are welcome to begin presenting.
Here we go. Thanks so much for having me, friends. My name is JJ. I'm coming at you from here in West Philly, and to talk about a project called Walk Around Philadelphia, which is literally just that. It's inviting you to walk around the city on foot. I want to first recognize that not everyone on this call is in Philadelphia. One of the cool things about this project is it has expanded drastically my understanding of the region. After having grown up, well, maybe the last 20 years of my life, sort of thinking of Philly as a center city, historic district. I went to university in West Philly. I worked in a place in South Philly. This is the amount of this region that I knew. and circumnavigating the whole city on foot recently introduced me to a spot up by Lorimer Park in the Pennypack Trail, where I then walked, 10 more miles up into Southampton along the rail trail there. So there's something about this project that expands our understandings of the region and connects it in our minds. And the reason I think it's maybe relevant to the planning conversations is that planners think a lot about planning, but other people don't. Other people just sort of maybe think about their neighborhood, and then they think, why don't they do this? And they should do that. And it's humbling to traverse the terrain with your own feet, to set out and walk maybe 100 miles in whatever small chunks you can manage. We do this as an organized event twice a year in February and September. And it turns out that you encounter a lot of infrastructure. You encounter railways, you encounter roadways, you encounter water treatment plants, you encounter industrial sites and toxic waste sites. And there's this way that it weaves it all together. And even though we're not going out to learn anything in particular, just sort of through this curiosity, we learn a lot of different things, and it opens up a lot of rich conversations. This is also a great tool for constituent engagement. Walk with the people you want to have those rich conversations with. Here's why I think the walk is a revolutionary act in a couple ways. It embraces all of the city, all of those elements, right? Not just the glitzy parts, the parks, the pipelines, and the prisons. It really connects us to our landscape. It moves at a human pace. It slows us down, space for conversation, space for observation, space for connection. And it connects people in this world where we're all connected through these devices, but maybe isolated from our neighbors and isolated from our surroundings. The walk, I've seen it bring people from all sorts of backgrounds together in a shared experience of our environment. So this has been a public project. I've been doing it since 2016 through a little artist residency, but Walk Around Philadelphia has become a public program really since the pandemic, and it's grown a lot in the last 3 years. This is an ugly slide, but it highlights a couple of the things that happen when we set out to do this. All of the different sort of themes that might emerge, from geography and history to ecology and waterways to industry and infrastructure and land use and zoning and so on and so forth. I'm just going to show you a little bit what it looks like when people set out to walk with their neighbors around the city of Philadelphia. And I'm going to, of course, invite you to join us. What we've learned is that people want to do this. In the past 3 years, we've had over 1,000 participants of all ages. And when I say 12, I mean that there's a young man who was 12 when he did it, who walked 100 miles around the whole city. When I say 94, I mean there's an elder who, driven by his daughter to many points all around the perimeter of the city, walked as best he could in his wheelchair and out around the city's edge. Partners, cultural institutions have started plugging into this program. Educational institutions, I've organized some retreats for university students. We've had elected representatives start. Joe Hohenstein, our state rep in the Bridesburg district, has organized a walk around his own district where he walks with other community partners and then comes and walks the Delaware segment with our perimeter walkers. So this is a thing you can do in any of your districts. And then just to tell you that the walk isn't just a walk. There's been other programs like some writing coming out of this project, some printmaking coming out of this project, some online panel events like this one, the retreats. We're starting to install some wayfinding around the city's edge, and then have done some cultural events, exhibits, Cherry Street Pier. Look for more programming coming there this summer. I've been invited to be a program partner in residence there. And then people have started to talk about this thing. So it's becoming a little Camino de Santiago, Camino de Philadelphia, rather, kind of Appalachian Trail that is a thing that you don't have to go far to have this unique experience. And because Philly's border, if you did this in DC where I grew up, it wouldn't be that interesting. But Philly's border is wild and fascinating. And we do have, the historic mansions next to the scrapyards, next to the prisons, next to the beautiful parks, next to the museums, next to the nature wildlife refuges, and so on and so forth. So I definitely invite you to join us. I want to jump into some of the planning things, looking at things like the tools that we were talking about for looking at sidewalk coverage. This is an area right by the Bridesburg Regional Rail Station with 100% sidewalk coverage. And it's interesting when we go and actually walk it and you're like, oh, there is sidewalk coverage there, but someone in a wheelchair or someone with a big stroller isn't going to fit there because there's a string of pipes on both, or posts on both sites that obstruct the sidewalk. we were talking about ADA curb cuts. I didn't put this slide in here, but I was thinking about the City Ave bridge. If you're ever there, there's a beautiful protected sidewalk with a great view on that bridge, and some ADA, curb cuts. But to get to it is kind of like getting across some highway on-ramps, and is definitely not pedestrian friendly. So by being on the ground, we're learning these things, we're thinking about these things, we're encountering the obstacles that have just come across our paths, finding ways to navigate them. It's been really cool seeing the landscape change, seeing the trails be built. This is the first year in 2016 when 4 of us through a little artist residency were in Cobbs Creek Park, where there's a rail overpass around this way. And we had to sort of squeeze along against this stone wall. It definitely didn't feel safe as the traffic was zooming right next to us, quite tight. A year or two later, approaching that point, I was like, oh, I can't. I'm now inviting a couple people to join me on this walk. I can't bring a couple older folks to squeeze along that highway thing. So we're going to climb up the edge. And we found our way over the rail tracks to a steep, steep drop off where I was actually tying a rope around a post to support myself while I spotted someone else who was a little less steady on their feet down this steep grade. And, we made it through. But now, thank you, planners. We have this beautiful new sidewalk place that makes it a lot more accessible and enjoyable for us to come walking through, and we do it. There's places on the upper Delaware where someone circumnavigating the city might have stumbled into a scrap metal recycling facility. Not the safest place to go wandering around. But a couple years later, we see a trail being built. And a couple years later, Riverfront North has finished building a beautiful new segment of the Upper Delaware River Trail. And there's our state rep, Joe Hohenstein, walking his district with us. The city has been doing a feasibility study. These are a couple slides grabbed from their websites for the Lower Pequesing Creek. Off the map on the backside of my Paper Rand McNally map. But it's exciting seeing these trails potentially get developed. The one place that we struggle with sometimes is getting out of the Hines Wildlife Refuge or connecting from there to the airport. And so the Circuit Trails folks are building that potential connection. So I think something about this project has the potential to invite people to think about all these bigger systems of the city and how they connect together. Here's one that came up for me today, which is kind of interesting. There's a segment of trail on the Circuit Trails map that would connect and extend the Cobbs Creek Parkway in Southwest down to the new trail by the Eastwick Park and going down to the Hines Wildlife Refuge. So that orange segment shows as in progress. And I just, this is an interesting segment, right? Because Eastwick is a mostly working class Black neighborhood that is probably facing, besides some flooding, some gentrification pressures as amenities come in there. There's one neighbor who was very not thrilled this February with our group coming through their neighborhood. And at this point, it was a mostly white group. There's a lot of questions about who can walk, right? Walking around your city is a very basic thing, or walking around a region, but also taking a day off to do this kind of thing requires a ton of privilege. The first year we did it, we were 4 white folks with some class privilege and a Knight Foundation grant. I'm really thrilled and proud that with every iteration of the walk, it's been getting more inclusive, more diverse group of participants. This past time around in February, we had 6 participants who had free registrations with stipend support that gave them each $400 in Visa gift cards for 2 days of joining the walk. That's not nearly enough, but it's a start. It's my hope that the walk be about 20% of each group be stipend supported, because equity feels like an important part. So this is a sensitive area where some neighbors on the edge are having a trail that's coming towards their backyard. One person there was not thrilled about our coming through, but also one of my community advisory board members lives on the next block. She's thrilled about this project. And I just followed up with her again about that neighbor interaction. And I was like, hey, do you know that there's this in progress trail that's going to go literally behind your backyard? And she had no idea. She had no idea. She's like, what's this all about? So there's work to be done in notification and community outreach and community investment, and who are the people who are being impacted by these things. I wanted to share, I picked up my favorite copy of The Sun. This is from this is from the February issue. I wanted to share this quote that just really jumped out at me. They happened to have an interview with a city planner person. The quote is about references buildings, but I think trails and roads are just as equally interchangeable here. And so this paragraph from an interview with Wade Graham is, "I'm trying to say justice matters more than buildings. Romans made incredible buildings, but theirs was a slave empire, so what good did it do to anybody? The Egyptians built pyramids. How? It was a slave society. People were better off living in Bedouin tents, flexible, movable, democratic, hauled around the desert with camels, than building pyramids for pharaohs." To me, that's what's missing from all these conversations about urban planning. If you succeed in making a sustainable building, who gets to live there? We have to solve our social problems first, and designing a perfect city won't do that. Architecture has no intrinsic moral qualities. People do. That's the thing that jumped out for me. The walk is very much a evolving work in progress adventure. In addition to doing it again next September, there'll be a couple programs between now and then that I'd love to invite you to join. I'll pop in a couple links that might in the chat, but I think that's really all I wanted to say, and I'm happy to chat about it because it's a thing that I'm certainly excited about. I'll leave it there. I invite you to come walk with us. I invite you to walk around your neighborhood. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for bringing us all down to the resident perspective, JJ. Now we're gonna open up the panel discussion. So if all of our panelists can turn on their videos, and I'm just gonna quickly, Gina, if you could figure out how to like pin all of us, that'd be great. And we're waiting for Claire. Awesome. So just going from where JJ left off, while we wait for more questions to come in from the audience, it would be great to hear from our panelists how activists similar to JJ, so bike activists, pedestrian activists, can use the tools and the programs that each of our different agencies provide. So all of us talked about the different programs we have. So how can somebody who is not a planner, somebody who has a completely different job, who doesn't understand data, use the tools that we show today to support their community? And everybody can answer this, so feel free to jump in.
I can start. Thanks, Wendell. So I think the most important thing is really just getting involved with local advocacy groups, contacting your elected members of whether, you know, it's a borough, municipal, city council. It's really so much of this work is done kind of with, you know, essentially voices from like, you know, just a normal community member kind of getting other community members on board and then, you know, kind of advocating to your, you know, elected representative to really institute these changes. I feel like that's so important. And really just sharing these ideas and tools far and wide. I feel like it's hard to really understand just how much access we have when it comes to data, whether it's Nidhi's data from PennDOT, Claire's from OTIS. Like, I feel like there's just such a wealth of data that really is available to you that you can really use to, you know, convince your friends, families, neighbors, and kind of really kind of advocate for change in that way.
I think I completely agree with Chris, and I'll add to pick up on something that JJ was just saying. You know, we're aware that when we come in and do projects, we don't always have the best communication. You know, luckily we've gotten money from the infrastructure law to staff up, and we have community coordinators, and you know, we do what we can to get out there, and we recognize that there are gaps, and we do rely on you know, the people who are engaged and informed enough to be here on a beautiful evening to share and spread the word with your neighbors. And I you know, a lot of times I'm at a public meeting and someone will come up to me and they'll say, well, I didn't know about this project. And I'm like, well, you're here, so you did know about this project. But I think what they're saying is, you know, I wish that I had heard about it earlier. I wish I had the tools to understand what it was in advance so I could prepare my thoughts about the project before I talk to you. You know, I think there is something legitimate in what they're saying, even though it can be frustrating for me as a planner to hear that. And so I think that, the tool that I shared about the Street Smart PHL, where you can see if a street's being paved, even if we can't do transformative, put in a bike lane, just sharing like, hey, there's construction happening on, your street. Our streets department tries to let folks know. We post signs, maybe someone's out of town, they miss it. You're a block captain, you have a neighbor's like text list, email list, spread the word. Please help us. Thank you.
Nidhi, it'd be great to hear from PennDOT's perspective, because the rest of us are doing kind of local projects, even though DVRPC does regional, but we still do a lot of local projects. So it'd be really great to hear how residents can get engaged with PennDOT, who is a state beast.
Beast indeed. I think that is what I was trying to say in my last slide there. When it comes to the suburban counties and any municipality, I think the go-to would be the local municipality. And they can get people should get a sense of what the municipality is ready for. The same would be true for Philadelphia, but Philadelphia has a ton of resources where a lot is possible compared to smaller municipalities in the suburbs. And so depending on the financial situation of the municipality and what they are really willing to do, sometimes they bring forth things in front of their board of supervisors and take decisions. So those are the kind of people that should be the go-to first. But you can, any individual can come to PennDOT as well, to the bike and ped coordinators, and bring forth a point. We can go to the municipality and coordinate. But it's better when it comes from the municipality. It gives us, we know that the municipality is ready to adopt a traffic calming measure or a bicycle facility or some other project. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody, if you have a question for our panelists, please raise your hand. They're here to take your questions. They don't have to be incredibly well thought out, just any question that you may have.
And Wendell, I just wanted to add one last thing to the previous
Oh.
question.
Mhm.
I feel like one other important thing is there's so much federal money available right now through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, as Claire mentioned. And so many municipalities and counties are eligible for a lot of this aid. I feel like they just aren't aware of like when deadlines are approaching or what projects to be funding. So I'm just going to add in the link to the page that DVRPC manages that kind of tracks all of that funding, whether you're interested in safe routes to schools or regional trails programs. Like this is worth sharing with anyone that you think, really would be interested, whether it's a school superintendent or whether it's, a council member. I just feel like this information is really important to get out there because this money is available and I don't want to see our region leaving any on the table.
Thank you, Chris. While we're waiting for live questions, there was another question that came in from the registration. This person is curious what data is available for activities taking place in the New Jersey portion of the DVRPC planning area. So I know this is a DVRPC question because the rest of us are Pennsylvania based, but Chris, if you wanted to answer that or share resources, how they can find out about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think going to the DVRPC's open data portal is probably your best step in like kind of filtering out a lot of like the New Jersey counties where data might be being collected. One thing that I work with often is our pedestrian and bicycle data. And as I mentioned, the bicycle data goes back to 2014. The pedestrian data is kind of on a by project basis, but all of that information can be found not only in the data catalog, not only in the open data portal, but also on dvrpc.org/traffic. And you can kind of see the region as a whole. And if you want to just look at Gloucester County, Camden, Mercer, or Burlington, you do have the ability to do so. And I'll drop that link right now.
Thank you. We had another question come in during the registration process regarding using other sources of data for planning. So this person had asked, does anyone use the Strava Metro data set for planning? I'm not familiar with this, so I don't know if anybody wants to answer this, but I think it would be great to hear from JG. When you're doing your walks, what do you use to plan your walks?
Oh, well, planning our walks is an interesting thing because the walk definitely has an element of improvisation. Walk Around Philadelphia is more of a practice than a path. People have asked us for turn-by-turn directions, and even if I could give them, they would change the next week when something is being built because it's a lot of terrain that, as you know, has work going on it. And sometimes there's a new trail, and sometimes there's an obstruction, and so on and so forth. I was really excited to see some of Claire's slides. I was like, oh, they're going to build a bike path around the southeast corner of the Navy Yard that they normally turn us away in. That'll be exciting. So in terms of planning, I've used some different GPS trackers, not Strava, but a lot of our participants do end up tracking their routes. We sometimes have some disagreements where Graham somehow consistently gets a mile less than I do using the same GPS things. But a lot of our planning originally involved Google Maps research and satellite view and looking at the paper map. Rand McNally claims that County Line Road up here in the Northeast extends in a place that it definitely doesn't exist. When you show up there is no County Line Road. There is a petroleum pipeline and some creeks to cross. And I don't know when the last time they updated this map is, but that was a funny one here. And I see Nidhi maybe taking a note on that one. But a lot of our, we use what we call the Roomba rule, which is acting like a silly little robot vacuum cleaner, finding its way around a new space. And when we try to be as close as possible to the perimeter within reason, but we're not walking the middle of the river. We're not breaking through fences and off limits areas. When there's an obstacle, we just find a way around it, which means sometimes the line is here and our actual path takes some weirdo zigzags. And each time it's a different adventure, and that element of collective wayfinding is actually part of it. So long rambling thing that we don't actually plan that much. But when we've looked at some of the recon, we're like, oh, there's a new bridge, or oh, we learned that this trail, forget what it's called, the Baxter Trail on the northern Delaware River is theoretically only open summertime on weekends. But the thing is, if you assume it's closed, then you would not notice, like we did this February, that actually it happened to not be locked and we wandered on through there. So there's some gentle exploration that happens along the way.
So for the planners in the panel, I would ask, how are you incorporating like the resident experience into your data tools? So I know DVRPC has like the low stress bicycles and the sidewalks. And if you want to talk more about that and what that means, similar to what JJ was saying in his presentation, sometimes it says there's a sidewalk there, but then you get to the sidewalk and you're like, technically, yes, this is a sidewalk. And what does that mean when it comes to planning? And this is open to everyone.
No, I think that's a great question, Wendell. I think really planning is really like a collaborative community event. As Claire mentioned, the people who know the neighborhood the best are the people who live there. And that's why we really rely on, the firsthand experiences and kind of really trying to like ground truth our knowledge of the neighborhood with the local neighbors. And I think that's really important, whether it's like updating our sidewalk portal or whether we're developing a traffic calming plan for a particular block. I think just like making sure the neighbors are involved every step of the way is crucial.
Yeah, I'll add, I think we have the advantage in Philadelphia of, some slightly smaller region than you're working with at PennDOT or DVRPC, but going out there ourselves and seeing the conditions, as JJ mentioned, like sometimes Google Maps is not updated or you can't get the right angle. We do have some tools, luckily, that are internal that have imagery that's a bit more accurate and up to date than Google Maps is, but if we're doing a roadway project, we are sending the first thing we do before we even start throwing out ideas of what kind of design tools might we use is to go out there. We went out recently on a project and saw that, yeah, a sidewalk that doesn't exist, that we thought existed. And, we could figure out also, we were like, maybe it doesn't exist, but then we confirmed that it didn't exist and we knew exactly where it ended. And that really affects, where we're thinking about now, maybe for the bikes facility on that project. But I think, that's step number one is like the human component that we can do, but then there's the human component that we can't do. Which is where, we talk to folks, because it's like we go out there once or twice, we might not see all the conditions. A project that we've been working on in my neighborhood, which is also West Philly, we've been traffic patterns at school pickup, where and how that might affect our project, which we wouldn't, if we went out there at 10 a.m., we wouldn't know the problems, but the folks who live on that block were able to tell us, like, this is exactly how parents pick up their kids and the safety issues that we observe on a daily basis. So that sort of thing might not get reflected in our tools, but it will get reflected in our projects.
If I may add, I think it's a work in progress, the level of traffic stress for bicyclists, the wonderful tool that DVRPC has, I think it's an indispensable tool for us who look at the gaps of what is existing and how it can be improved. But if I'm planning to walk, I don't think I'll go to a stretch and then suddenly say, this is high stress, I'll stop. I can only plan on, I'm going to evaluate perhaps that, is this a small enough distance that I can get through and go to a low level of traffic stress area. But hopefully we'll be one day at a place where most of it will be low, and there will be parallel routes that are low traffic stress. That's all that I can really add at this point.
Thank you. We had a question come in through the Q&A from James Bergman. What are some of the ways you use data to capture latent demand for walking and rolling? JJ, you responded via text in the QA, but feel free to respond again live and use your anecdote if you like.
Oh, no, I realized I accidentally marked that question as answered and couldn't undo it. I thought maybe other folks who are working with more data might have other answers. All I can say is anecdotal that there is latent demand for walking. Like, people want to get out of the house. People want to get away from their screens. People want to have opportunities to be out walking with neighbors. I've been doing that with the Fairmount Park Conservancy's We Walk PHL groups. But I think, the need is out there. The invitations might be, the invitations might be lacking, but I'm curious what other panelists would say from a more data-driven perspective, what you can see.
Something I'll add is, so, we've kind of always operated, I think, the best practices in transportation planning show, we know that, like, as we build like a bike lane, more people will bike. I mean, that's been shown time and again. And so we kind of operate, on that general assumption, but we don't like to operate on assumptions where possible. And so recently, one of the other exciting things that came out of our story map that we shared earlier was we looked at change in biking when we put in our bike projects and our road diet projects. So we saw a 106% increase in daily bike trips where we did road diets. And then we saw it was a 158% increase in bike trips where we put in separated bike lanes. And so that's really nice data to have because it's specific to our projects and Philadelphia. And so we can hopefully, every project will be a little different, but we can use that data to say, as we go forward, we can expect probably a similar increase on future projects.
That's actually a really great point, Claire. Chris, can you talk about DVRPC's work in Jersey and similar to Claire, like what that means, like after you put in a bike lane?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to add to Claire's point, the study released this past week, I believe, about east of Broad on Washington Ave showed some really encouraging results when it came to bicycle ridership, pedestrians, making the bus more efficient. So I would definitely recommend checking that out if you hadn't had a chance to read it already. So one big thing that we do at DVRPC before and after we put in a project is we take counts. We'll take pedestrian counts, bicycle counts, vehicle class counts, as well as speed counts. We always take that before the project. So then once the project is installed, implemented, and folks get, used to, whether it's a traffic circle, a bike lane, we then will always take after counts to see exactly how this project may have impacted, you know, we kind of always are hoping to see that more people are on bike, more people are walking, vehicles are going slower. So that's really like kind of how we measure that like kind of latent demand, kind of studying past projects to see, if a similarly designed project, whether it's traffic calming or infrastructure, like more, traffic bollards for protected bike lanes, will have that same impact. So I feel like kind of taking that data approach of doing the before and after can really make the case for future projects and help us learn from previous ones.
I'd just like to add this from PennDOT's perspective that so far PennDOT's approach to this has always been reactionary rather than looking at the latent demand. What is really changing and exciting at this point is that more and more as these stories come out of how, say, a parking separated bike lane has made its impact and how much bicycling has improved, that has led us to look at it in a different way as well and employ that as a tool for another location. So given the magnitude of roads that we have at PennDOT, we look forward to more municipal approach and an initiative that comes to us, and then we can help them. And of course, DVRPCs and of course OTIS's work telling us how much improvement has occurred due to the various countermeasures that they have taken helps us in our decision making. And this is not from a planner's perspective. I'm really speaking from an engineer's perspective at PennDOT.
Thank you. I have one more question. We're getting up on time, so if we could answer it pretty fast. JJ talked about just walking the periphery of Philadelphia, so seeing what it's like on the other counties. Does anybody want to talk about bicycle pedestrian access within inner county? So, building sidewalks that maybe just stop and you can clearly see the difference between one side and the other side, or like working across county lines. I know PennDOT does that a lot, DVRPC does that a lot, and I'd be interested in hearing the Philadelphia perspective of trying to create a space where bicyclists feel safe and pedestrians feel safe, but then the second you hit another county, like the road just disappears. So we have like 1 more minute, so if you guys could just answer that quickly.
I'll answer it very quickly. We've had that situation so many times where bike lanes are running through different municipalities. And so our approach has been there has been case where one municipality said, no, we don't want bicycle facility. The other one said, yes, we do want it. And so what we've done is, yes, we made a bike facility there. The other one, we just left a shoulder. Like, okay, the bicyclist does know where to go. It's just not marked as much and they have lesser responsibilities. That's all I'll say.
Anyone else want to like share their thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just say I don't have a ton of experience with this. We're having conversations around one project it's a road that goes into another county, and we want to do a road diet and the county wants to widen it. And these are opposite competing ideas, but I think that similar, we do we do collaborate, we do have conversations with them. And so, yes, there's not really like an answer, we're not going to widen, they're not going to diet, but like, how can we make that transition feel good? And how can we make that transition not sudden? And how can we, have those conversations in advance so that we all know what's going on?
Yeah, I kind of just want to echo what Claire and Nidhi said. I just think like kind of realizing your county or municipality doesn't exist on an island and always looking at the context that's surrounding it. Kind of going back to what JJ was saying, like, I feel like it's always kind of important to like just be considering, what is like, what are the possibilities of, and what are the limitations of kind of planning, and always just working with I feel like communications between municipalities and counties is so vital. And I feel like really just ensuring that you are talking to the right people and kind of understanding their, perspective is crucial.
We're at time, so thank you so much to all of our panelists. Thank you to all of the attendees. This was a really great conversation. I know I enjoyed it. If you're here tonight, you're probably already involved with DVRPC, but if this is your first meeting with us, please sign up for our monthly newsletter, check out our event calendar, and don't forget to apply to become a PPTF member. DVRPC works with PennDOT and City of Philadelphia and all of your cities and municipalities all the time. So by getting involved with us, we can also give you resources for how to get more involved with your own local municipality and communities. So thank you again so much to our presenters. All your links will be shared and posted on the DVRPC website. And thank you again to all of our attendees for coming tonight. Like everybody said, it is a beautiful weather night, and spending this time with us and asking us some great questions. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.